No matter how long you play video games, every once in a while you're in for a surprise, as developers both big and small attempt to create new and innovative designs. 3D graphics were once the big innovator of the industry, but now, with realistic visuals being at such a height, they need to seek new and creative ways to change how video games are made and presented. And the game we're looking at today takes both visuals and storytelling in a new direction. Light Apprentice is an episodic game that blends numerous genres including turn-based RPG, adventure and, to some degree, point and click. The game is developed and published by Amazu Media. It entered early access on Steam March 17, 2017. It also released on iOS and Android devices. The gameplay to Light Apprentice may not be anything new to that of Final Fantasy style games, but its visuals and storytelling take the form of a comic book that is brought to life during gameplay that leaves you in complete awe. You take on the role of T-Lob and Nate in their journey to revitalise the post-apocalyptic world to its original prosperity. T-Lob is a wizard who is sent on an expedition to find Nate, one of the 5 apprentices with the power to protect the planet and bring it back to life. Nate is a light apprentice whose power focuses on light, making him exceptionally strong against dark and shadow beings. After T-Lob finds Nate and releases him from his crystallized prison, the two embark on a mission to return to the surface and reunite the 5 apprentices, and only then will it be possible to return the planet to its former glory. The entire plot of Light Apprentice is split into 3 volumes, each containing 4 chapters, with the first volume being released in its entirety on November 10th, with the other 2 and their chapters still to be developed. The plot is interesting and keeps a good pace where there aren't any slowdowns due to massive amounts of exposition. It really touches on some very real topics such as the effects of pollution and the damages that mass industrialization can do to the environment if done carelessly. Along with that, it has some moving moments throughout that are enough to make even the most hardened of gamers wallow up at times. And there are few games that have ever generally had my eyes tear up to a point that I had to take a break before continuing to play. The first 2 chapters really get you intrigued into the game. The third one does take a step down, but the 4th chapter really picks things up again. Even with the dip in intrigue with the 3rd chapter, they all kept me hooked from beginning to end, as I couldn't wait to see what adventures the heroes got into. The biggest highlight of the plot is how it is told, which is like a comic book. Everything from the artwork to the speech bubbles. It is clearly done by a big fan of comic books, and they've done a fantastic job in bringing that from paper into a video game. Not only does the comic book style look great, it plays great too, and how they've combined that with the gameplay is nothing short of spectacular. And anyone that loves comic books and really well paced and interesting plots is going to love Light Apprentice. One of the most encapsulating things about Light Apprentice is how you explore the environment. This is where a lot of the point and click style of gameplay comes into play. Essentially how it works is that for each room or area there is a different box, just like a comic where a new box shows the next scene. It is here that you need to click on various things in the environment, such as clicking on items needed to use on another object to progress, to open chests, and to even enter combat or continue exploring. There's just something about experiencing things go from still images as a comic book, suddenly coming to life like the characters and various aspects of the environment like water or machinery, that is just magical. And that is exactly what Light Apprentice's presentation is. Magical. The combat to Light Apprentice is very similar to that of old Final Fantasy games, that being turn-based, but it does have a few modern twists to it. Essentially how it works is that at the beginning of each turn you choose your team's actions, that being attack, using a skill or item, or going into defense mode. The game then takes the speed of each of the characters and the enemies into account, and each of the units on the screen make their move in the order of the highest speed first to the lowest speed last. When attacking enemies with melee attacks, a yellow circle will appear on the screen, followed by a ring quickly making its way into that circle. If you click while the ring is in the circle, your character will do extra damage. While casting spells or skills, you will need to complete some form of task to get the most out of it. For example, when casting Fireball, you will need to click as many times to charge it up. The more you click, the more damage the Fireball will do. When it comes to healing, the more stars you move the cursor over, the more the spell will heal the character. This really adds a feeling of the player having an impact on the combat and the characters during it, as the better you play with each attack, the better the characters fight. Skills also require energy to be used. The more powerful the skill, the more energy it requires. You gain energy by hitting enemies and taking damage, but some enemies can drain it, vastly limiting your ability to use skills. You can have up to a total of 10 energy at any one time. Having the energy mechanic means you can't just spam your most powerful skills all the time. Indeed, there are items like any other game like this that can restore health and energy, but you can only carry 3 into a battle. So you do need to be strategic with your skills and use them when needed, which adds more depth than most, where you can just keep restoring your MP and continuing to use your best skills. While not being able to spam the most powerful spells is a good thing, the limit of 10 energy means most skills don't ever get used, as there just isn't enough energy to cater for them all, making it a blessing and a curse all in one. Along with the energy, all characters in battle have an endurance bar. Certain attacks will lower characters' endurance, and if it reaches 0, they'll become stunned for an attack. Any character that is stunned will receive a critical hit if attacked. It's a nice little addition to the combat, but some enemies have way too much endurance to make it a tactic worth using. In order to reduce the endurance, you will need to use skills that use up your energy, that you may have other more important uses for in combat. As you progress through the game, you will need to make decisions, and what choices you make affects what skills your characters gain. More passive and friendly choices often lead to gaining buffs or more passive skills that affect the enemy's endurance. The more aggressive choices will often give you offensive skills. So yes, the decisions that you make definitely have an impact on your character's development, which is a nice little touch, and works pretty well in accordance to your playstyle. It is old school combat, but it does have some modern touches. Indeed, the combat doesn't do anything different to that of other titles out there, but it does a damn fine job for the most part, creating an engaging, fun and easy to use combat system that fans of old school Final Fantasy will love from start to finish. There is an additional mode available to play after the first chapter of the game is complete, called Quest Mode. This mode revolves around having to complete battles in each of its locations scattered across the map. Each location has 5 levels, and each level has a set number of battles that must be won. If you complete a level without using an item or a character being killed, you will gain an item as a reward. It is only through this mode that it is possible to obtain rings, which increase character strength, intelligence and critical hit chance. There are 3 locations for each chapter of the game, and the further you progress, the more powerful the items are rewarded. The problem with this mode is that it is quite boring to play, and worst of all, it is mandatory to play it in normal and hard difficulty, as without the rewards, you won't be able to progress in the later chapters because of the big difficulty spike with combat. It gives the impression that Quest Mode was only created for the purpose of making the game slightly longer. Ultimately, the fact is, it is mandatory for the normal and hard difficulties to play Quest Mode. It makes it more of a burden to the game as opposed to adding any form of value. In honesty, the game would be far better without it and the difficulty modes, as is the plot that is the developer's strength over gameplay, and this design choice certainly makes that very evident. Light Apprentice is an excellent game despite its few flaws. Its highlight is without a doubt the plot and its storytelling. It has a well crafted comic book design and a plot that is engrossing, moving and a sheer joy to play. I would go as far as to say the plot to Light Apprentice is one of the best in a video game that I've ever had the pleasure to play, and it's without a doubt the writing and the art design that is the developer's strength. The gameplay is great too, apart from its few flaws such as the energy mechanic, which becomes a bit problematic as the party grows, and there are some bugs here and there. There is also a bit of optimization that remains to be done, with frame stutters here and there, along with occasional momentary freezing. The quest mode is something that I would personally like to see removed, and I hope that it is either integrated into the actual plot for the next game, or at least completely redesigned to be interesting and rewarding to play, as opposed to it being just there to make the game longer. Despite its few issues, Light Apprentice is nothing short of phenomenal when it's in its element, and that is the campaign. It is innovative and redefines how a story can be told in a video game, and with that I give Light Apprentice 10 out of 10. Indeed, Light Apprentice has problems with its design and gameplay here and there, but it offers a plot and storytelling that no other game has done before. And for $10, it is worth every single cent. It is an absolute must play for anyone that loves a good story, that isn't afraid to touch on what could be a real problem in the future, along with playing with the player's emotions. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, have fun.